Now, there's an app for just about anything, and virtually every business, retailer, or website is prompting customers to download its app too. So should your business venture also get an app? Joining us from the Cape Town studio to help us answer this question is Lynette Hundermark. She's the Managing Director and Chief Product Officer at mobile solutions consultancy Useful and Beautiful. Lynette, welcome and thank you so much for being on the show. Maybe just give us a sense of where South Africa fits in the hype. How popular are apps in the South African market?
Hi, thanks for having me. Apps are extremely popular and they are gaining in popularity because smartphones are becoming more and more affordable, thus giving people access to apps. If you measure the daily engagement of apps today as opposed to a couple of years ago, you will see that more and more users are actively engaged in apps.
Are we able to pinpoint which apps are the most popular in the South African market?
In the South African market, looking across the various charts across the Android and iOS, the charts are usually dominated by your WhatsApp and your Facebook, those sort of apps. But local apps that are really popular are your banking apps. They've been popular for a while and they are growing in popularity. Those are apps from specifically FNB, Capitec, and Standard Bank. They feature in the top 50. And interestingly, another app that's doing quite well at the moment is the Pick n Pay Super Animals app. Obviously, that's in line with their current campaign.
That's really interesting. And of course, Lynette, you spend your day advising businesses on their app strategies. So surely you have a view on whether all businesses actually need to have apps.
That's an interesting question and an interesting conversation to have. It really depends on whether a business can add that value to the consumer who is using the app. In this day and age, all businesses need to have a mobile presence. That's absolutely mandatory. But when it comes to an app, there is a consumer expectation that the app will provide a very rich and useful user experience that you cannot get on a mobile site. So it really, really depends that the app really needs to have something more than what a mobile website will offer. From the business.
You've touched on an important insight, and this is around adding value for the customer. How are businesses actually perceiving the use of apps in the business? Are they seeing them as an opportunity to add value, or are they seeing apps as an opportunity to have an additional revenue stream?
Again, it depends on the type of business. Most businesses today use apps as an add-on service to complement their ecosystem and to contribute to their omni-channel strategies. For example, retail apps. They are there to aid with the path to purchase, whereas some businesses use apps purely for a revenue stream, and that's typically your on-demand services like your Uber, where the app is the actual business.
So certainly different strategies for different companies, but perhaps let's also talk about those companies that you think are well positioned to leverage an app. What are the first starting blocks when you begin to build an app for your business?
The first thing, and while it might seem like an obvious thing to touch on, but I often see this when I advise clients, is businesses need to understand who their audience is and what platform they need to target. Quite often I find that businesses want to develop an iOS app, but the current stats of South Africa, and this is based on the last 6 years, it's iOS apps, as lovely as iPhones especially, they only make up between 5 and 7% of the South African population. And businesses need to see value and engagement. So when developing an app, you need to understand what cell phones, what handsets your consumers are likely to be on. Because if you want to see results, you need to be present on what they are actually using. So it's important to understand who your consumer is and what they are using, and then to go into exactly what features are going to add that value, because at the end of the day, without getting that user engagement, your app is not going to make a difference to your business.
Absolutely, and if we stay with user engagement, one then can make the assumption that it's largely going to be companies that provide products or services where there's a high concentration of urban consumers who are tech savvy. What about businesses that are perhaps looking at more outlying areas and servicing or giving products to consumers that are not in urban centers? Should they possibly redirect some of that focus to other strategies rather than apps?
Again, it really depends on what that consumer market is. As mentioned earlier, because handsets these days, smartphones, are becoming far more affordable. So you find the consumer is, they want to have the latest handset that they can afford. But what's really important is to make sure that you develop an app or whatever solution that you want to for that target audience, taking into consideration their bandwidth, their data.
Right.
And most importantly, it's making the user experience really, really simple and intuitive. At the end of the day, a mobile user is guaranteed to be multitasking. They're busy people, so they want to do their task in as little time as possible. So you need to make that task as seamless as possible. Yes, if apps is not the right route, there are other mobile channels as well, such as USSD, which is really popular and really effective as well. But it really depends on the functionality that you want to offer your consumer, and just developing a solution that meets their needs.
A final one, Lynette. So I've picked up that usability is quite important, but what other differentiators are going to separate the winners, in particular the winning apps versus ones that are not going to get as high as user engagement as those that are leading the market?
Yes, without a doubt, usability, as you picked up. But also, it's making efficient use of that real estate. At the end of the day, you are working with such a small screen. So it's important not to clutter that, and the functionality that you are going to have in this app, you need to be able to perform that task. My rule of thumb is you need to do it in under 2 minutes. And that's what makes an app really, really popular and sets it from the rest. Because at the end of the day, there are so many apps, and you need to set yourself from the competition and be the one that everyone's going to be using.
Be the one that everybody wants to be using. A very big thank you to Lynette Hundermark, Managing Director and Chief Product Officer at Mobile Solutions Consultancy, Useful and Beautiful.